switch back to this app.
Okay, we are live.
Wish I had. All right. I just hate that angle.
Uh-oh, you all right? Okay, so let me check
Yeah,
the
I'm good.
audio real quick.
'Cause I'm in my mobile home, which might be
Yeah,
my permanent home if I don't get a jobby job.
Speaking of homes, welcome everybody. I'm Mark Peters. I am the founder and director of Progress for All, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to not only voter registration but also voter education. For the last few months, we have been doing a number of town hall events that are open to the public regarding different issues. This my guest rather is Darian Doc Wheeler, who is also a board member of Progress for All, and the two of us are here tonight to discuss the topic of housing affordability in the midst of a
A storm.
thunderstorm here in Virginia, while uh,
Nice
Mr.
sunny
Wheeler
in
is
Chicago.
located in, that's right, I'm in Arlington, Virginia, and Mr. Wheeler is located over in Chicago. So these events have been co-sponsored by a number of different groups, uh, namely the Theta Rho Lambda chapter of Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, as well as the Phi Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, located in Alexandria, Virginia, the Arlington County NAACP, the Alexandria City NAACP, and also Progress for America, a 501c4 that supports Progress for All. So there are a number of issues around the economy that many people are very much concerned about. And a lot has occurred in the past 30 days. Last we met, it was the end of July. So now here we are, the end of August. We have a whole new candidate on one side of the House competing against the other candidate. And both have put forth their ideas and plans for how to deal with the economy and jobs, but additionally, housing. And this is all relevant to all Americans, but since we're focusing particularly on African American males, we wanted to have a little discussion, free-form discussion on that, and make sure that we hopefully provide some insight that is of value when people are trying to make the best decision for themselves on who to pull the lever come November or even before, because early voting is starting in a couple of weeks, depending on which state you're in, like as early as the next 10 days. So, one of the issues I want to talk about is according to U.S. Census Bureau, the Urban Institute, and the Pew Research Center, uh, there's a 30% gap in home ownership rates between black males and their white counterparts. And just wanted to ask you, Doc, if you had any ideas on, you know, what are the key factors? Why is that happening? And how does that affect wealth accumulation for black households?
Well, I think a few key factors would definitely be understanding your financial resources and well, let's start with a few things. Um, because we're comparing it to, another culture, which is pretty much, as we know, have had a leg up or has had some type of real estate within a family structure that they could go to and also reside in or use as a vehicle for wealth generation. So that's one. Your, I want to say typical, and I want to, and let me. I hate to do caveats, but this isn't for all. We're just talking a more of a blanket perspective of it, which is the 30% gap. Um,
Right.
Most often, the average or the person that's being affected by that does not understand money. Even if they do make six figures, their monetary habits and their money mindset is number one. Number two, understanding what real estate or home ownership is actually, how it actually flows within their structure, because some assets, home ownership can be a detriment rather than a wealth generation in some cases. And I'll explain that a little later. So you got wealth, you have historical or generational wealth. That's a factor. And the number one, job and credit. Number one or two, job or your profession, and also your credit standards and credit worthiness are kind of 4 or 5 factors that I kind of listed out there.
Gotcha. Uh, you brought up something that stuck out to me right at the front. You said for all, and of course, this is progress for all. It's like, well, wait a
Right.
minute, slow down.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that the idea that is at the core of the organization itself is that we want to extend information, and if that information is then utilized, then when you use that knowledge in a constructive manner, that's power, or that
Mhm.
help to create power for folks. Voting is a power thing. So if you have proper voting information, you're registered, where your polling place is, what the candidates are about, that empowers you when you actually pull the lever. But this information, though we're specifically targeting Black males because we're concerned about the neglect that
And
has
yeah, the
happened,
disparity.
the
Mhm.
disparity in terms of micro targeting, not just people who are left leaning, people who are Democrats, people of color, which is a broad term for anybody who's non white,
Correct.
but or not just Black folks. And then a lot of emphasis gets placed on Black women, and then Black males are kind of like slide to the side, don't really need to
Yep.
worry.
Mhm.
We're specifically focused on Black males, providing information to a community that we feel needs the most assistance, needs the most help. But in so doing, similar to that concept of a rising tide that lifts all boats, we are providing something that's
Yeah, information for all.
possibly of constructive value, right, to all folks. So I
Right.
mean, we have historically for centuries not been able to be owners of businesses, of other assets, wealth generating assets, of of property, of land.
Mhm.
Uh, However, this is a situation that has affected other underrepresented groups, and there are even some poor white folks out there who might stand to benefit from knowing a little bit more about not just personal finance, but personal or family wealth generation. But that being said, right, there's a specific disparity that is been put upon Black people, particularly Black males, who are trying to be the breadwinners of their families, who are trying to be these strong pillars that their spouses and children can depend upon, but
Right.
that gets undercut by not having access to information because it wasn't provided in the past. They didn't want you to have it in the past.
Right.
So
Well,
that there's
if
that.
I can kind of interrupt there,
Yeah, yeah,
the information is accessible now, so the
yeah.
excuses are not as, I don't want to say shouldn't be used as a crutch or as a additional plight for the disparity. The information
Hmm.
is out there.
Right.
However, there's still the mindset of how to execute the information.
Right.
Um, Similar to, I asked this question, to a few people before. I bet the rules of getting a home could be really simplified in about 3 to 5 pages. However,
Mm.
when you when you're going and researching and doing all this hitherto, it's buried deep inside of all kinds of litigation and all kinds of documentation for the purpose of legalities. Uh, so you do have that. That is a barrier. However, that's not a barrier that's excusable. So you can go, you can get the information, and it may take some time. I think right now we're in a micro, and this. Okay, let me back up because I kind of hear voices like, okay, yeah, it's information, but there's still the execution part of it. So because there's steps to this thing. So in
Right.
order to get a home, there are a few steps that you need to take. It took me, I would say, getting out of a certain credit score or bringing myself up to a certain credit score and looking good on paper. So if I cut to the chase, John Hope Bryant talked about this. The banks, I don't want to say don't care what color you are. They just want to see that your money's green. That's what talks and that's what moves the needle in America more than anything and around the world. However, to keep that and look good on paper, there's still some things that you need to do. And within those steps, you can get caught in a whirlwind of impediments.
Confusion.
Not, yeah, I mean, there's confusion, but impediments. One being, yeah, your credit score can be at a certain level, but you may not make enough to sustain a healthy payment of where you would like to live because you might be able to, I'm from Detroit, so you might be able to afford a certain home in Detroit with an average of, maybe $63,000. However, the neighborhood that it's in is not sustainable to you and your growth and for your family to live safely in that neighborhood. And I can speak to other volumes in that as well. So you might be making 45 to $60,000. You can afford a home in that range, but that home in the, in the range of the environment isn't as safe. So you quote unquote would like to move into a better neighborhood. Better neighborhoods equate to parallel to a higher credit score and definitely a higher mortgage payment.
Right. Right. And it makes it also difficult to sell that first home because as you're bringing people by, if there are things going on that make people not feel safe, even in viewing the home, if something happens, and we've heard stump speeches about, if we want to talk about disparities, we've heard stump speeches about how when Black folks are trying to get a home appraisal,
Yeah, they're
the
appraised lower.
value is lower
Hmm.
than if
And
they take
multiple
all the
studies
black
on this.
stuff out the home, right? And they get one of their white friends to
Correct.
present the home to the appraisal,
Yep.
and all of a sudden it
The
magically
numerical
gets
value
higher.
goes up significantly.
It's as if
Yep.
the asset has a set value, or rather, it doesn't have a set value. Think about it that way. The asset has an arbitrary value that increases depending on the hands that hold it.
Sure.
Depending on the color of the hands that hold it, the asset can either increase or decrease in value. It has nothing to do with how it's maintained. I
Nope.
mean, there was an issue. I remember watching some videos about how Kanye was having trouble selling his mansion because it wasn't properly maintained.
Hmm.
So like that's kind of an outlier. Like most of us don't have mansions and stuff, but regular Black family has a well maintained, nice starter house, and they want to move up. It's going to be difficult because you're going to have appraisers who fall into the statistic, was it factors contributing to the 30% gap, who are going to say it's not worth as much. And so then you have less capital to work with as you're trying to get a loan for that bigger, better house and a happier, healthier neighbor.
Hmm. Yep.
So I I don't know the answers. How,
So the,
so go ahead, keep talking.
no, I'm just saying too, I think kind of to decrease that is one way culturally is more of a mindset and an educational shift and a crowdsourcing shift and a trust. It's a few factors. And this is my views. This is not views of statistics or facts. One is kind of follow the model of I've seen immigrants that come into the States. They collectively purchase something, they work hard. I'm going to use some old similarities. You work really hard,
Strong back.
right, save up enough money, bootstrap
What?
to get a property. That property then becomes kind of a land base and where you house, well, today's term is called house hacking. You buy maybe a multi-unit, or the house is big enough to accommodate for a single family plus relatives that come over. That house is a starter home. That house is a base home. So when other relatives or any other people come to, they all come in, they contribute. That house is paid off quickly, maybe 10 to 15 years as opposed to the traditional 30-year mortgage. Yeah, you've house hacked, that's your family unit. It's paid for after a certain amount of time, and then you move on because now the house has equity. You can use equity and blah, blah, blah into that. However, when other relatives, friends, or family come through, they contribute and they contribute to the maintenance, they contribute to the what the house is for, so that you have a steady base. And then that maybe first starter home, as you grow, you move out, the kids get older. Now you can move out and you have enough equity in the home because it's hopefully gain some value so that you can take some of the equity out of that home and purchase another type of investment. I won't say another home, but move on to another bigger or better thing.
Mm-hmm.
Second small caveat for me is that, again, these are my views.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the neighborhoods that are deemed as not as desirable can pretty much be desirable by changing the mindset and just taking care of your own damn house. What I mean by that is cutting your grass, picking up the trash in front of your house. And if a multitude of houses do that on one block, your value goes up, your mindset goes up, and your block goes up. Your aura of being uh being a great human goes up. I live on a diverse block. I'm not saying it's perfect and things of that nature, but just cutting the grass and taking care of your home significantly raises that type of information. So that's where I am. I'm gonna be driving now, people. So uh, sorry about that. If I kind of
It's,
dip dab. Um, so those two, but going back to the education,
yeah.
my last point is having a collective mindset on a strategy on what your home is going to be. Is it going to be an investment home? Is it going to be a home where you house hack, or is this going to be a buy and flip, a buy and hold? It's a strategy to it. So going into it first, knowing what it's going to be is another thing. But one small thing is to collectively agree. And we all have a lot of family.
Uh-oh. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I got you. Go
I can
ahead.
hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. My 5G might be doing the most. So I'll make it quick. Um, just going back to crowdsourcing and buying a house with friends and family or a group.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. I have some points to respond to that, and then I want to move on to the
yep.
next question. So you were talking about immigrants and how immigrant communities seem to almost embrace that model minority myth and start to build as soon as they arrive on these shores, however they are. And I get the sense that for those who are doing that and succeeding, that they are folks that knew better and they therefore did better. But for some of us over here, going back, talking about those disparities, and you never were supposed to learn how to read and so forth.
I don't know. I just
Some
don't
of
think
some,
people want to be bothered. I want my own
but hold,
space. I don't want to
but
live with
hold,
Mark.
hold up though. I was breaking it down into different groups. That some of us don't know no better, and so they don't do no better. Some of us,
I'm breaking up. Now you're breaking up.
uh-oh, some of us don't know no better, and so they don't do no better. Some of us know better, but don't want to do any better. To your point, some of us do know better, and by the grace of God, they actually do better. But I still think there's a fourth, going back to that whole idea about the appraiser, that there are some of us who do know better, who are trying to do better, but are being hamstrung by the forces that be from doing so.
Yeah.
So, those are my concerns. But I want to move on to this next one about more stuff from the Census Bureau, Pew Research Center, and from the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard. So how does the median income for Black males, which is significantly lower than the national average, impact their ability to afford home ownership? We might have already touched on this a little bit. And what role does this play in perpetuating the wealth gap? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm the audio is
Well,
going in and out on StreamYard. I'm catching it and I think I understand. I know it's about the
Black,
median
yeah,
income for Black men is harsh, not significantly. Well,
yeah,
it's lower than our counterparts. So how does that affect home ownership? Is that the
yep,
synopsis? Okay.
and the wealth gap.
Uh, and oh, well, yeah, I mean, statistically, as I read, it's not looking good unless we change some healthy habits with money. It's, I believe, psychological, and I'm looking and I'm talking in the mirror. So this is not a finger point kind of ordeal. Um, so the way that we look at money, the way that we understand money, we are, or as I hear, we look at money as a scarcity kind of thing. I got to hold on to it and, kind of keep it, and I don't really understand it, and I don't know that I can use money as an investment and also gratification of money and what it brings to you because we haven't had quote unquote money,
Nice things.
nice things, which is well deserved. So the other mindset is even getting approved for, and it's not, again, this is for all, the mindset of understanding how to utilize money as a tool, i.e., plastic money,
Oh,
because you're borrowing to get a home. You're not, when you're getting a mortgage, well, most don't have $250,000 to just lay on the table and own a house flat out,
right.
or a healthy down payment of 50 and $60,000 or 20 at that. That's a significant amount of money when you hear the statistics that most Americans, all Americans, don't have their $1,000 in a savings account.
Right.
So you undercut that with the African American, which I'm got to get the statistics right. Average median household income was $8.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
what?
and that's a study. Yeah, I'll get that study and I'll send it. And that's been said numerous amount of times by John Hope Bryant. It's on multiple studies. I think it's in the Boston Globe reported that
What I
that
heard was
study
10 to 1. Like for every dollar that a black family might have, a white family would have 10. That's what I heard.
for every dollar. No, I've heard
No?
another significantly lower than that. Well, remember this is an average American household.
Okay.
$8. I'm just saying collectively, if we added up all of the wealth and then what is your liquid cash that you have available?
Okay.
$8. So there's that. In any case, on all cases, it's significantly low. But I just think changing the mindset and executing and understanding that, hey, yeah, we have a 400-year gap. We still
Mm-hmm.
might need to get ourselves together for 5 to 10 years if we all if we for all do things together and collectively, which I think is an issue. There are trust issues with people in general. That is just people in
Mm-hmm.
general and in America. You hear slightly about, hey, these groups of people in Atlanta crowdsource their funds and purchase land and they're building homes so that they can build their own neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody played a part into it, so okay, that's that. I'll give a small scenario. Well, even in Virginia or Baltimore or areas near you, I'm seeing and hearing things where they're auctioning off buildings for $1 and stuff like that. Let's
Dollar
just take my
homes.
home city, right? Let's take my home city of Detroit. Where I can go on Redfin or Zillow right now. I can definitely see a home that's decent for about $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Well, working hard, $500 check amongst some family members, that's a down payment that can get a short-term loan of $50,000 because there's cars that cost $50,000 and it depreciates. Well, if you purchase a home at $50,000, maybe 5 people go in, uh, it's doable, and
I
you do the Burr method and you buy, rinse, and you repeat it. Now, if everybody does that in a significant amount of time, you move in people to rent, you can possibly gain some income and purchase bigger and better things.
I
That's
guess
all
something
I'm
to
getting at.
I got something to say to that. So you're talking about building wealth there, and it's not just a matter of the mortgage, but there's a possibility of taking a second option on that same property, a HELOC. And we've heard some speeches about that as well, where you already have a loan to pay back to pay off the home, but you could take another loan out of that asset on that asset.
Absolutely. But those things still take discipline, which is what a lot of people don't have with money. And that's why we're a lot in this situation, which goes back to the mindset. So I agree, there's tools. However, you have to use those tools wisely.
There's tools. There's a need for more discipline. I'm also thinking about how people are going back. I think to because that was something else I wanted to speak to. We were talking about people having better habits,
Yep.
like the discipline to cut
Discipline.
the grass
Yeah.
in front of their yard
And
in order to improve the
consistency.
neighborhood. But
Not every month.
but another thing would be uh, uh, neighborhoods not just improve with a better upkeep. Neighborhoods could also improve through gentrification, which is something that we are fighting against, because if you want to build a community, it can't just be you buying a house all by your lonesome in some area and not really connecting with your neighbors. If you're talking about building strong Black families, part of doing so is helping other Black families along and forming some semblance of community. So multiple households are living next to each other in the neighborhood, and they're all working towards similar goals. If not, then gentrification may take hold, and yeah, property values will go up. They may even go up to the point that you can't afford to be there
Yeah.
anymore, and then you have people knocking on your door trying to buy you out of your house.
Right. Hold that
And
thought.
that's okay.
Give me a 1 minute grace period.
Okay. Do 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 do. Let me drink this water. Do 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 do. Let me get- All right, you bet. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Hold on, hold on. I had one more point on that. Hold on. You back? You're like frozen, and then the audio is faint. Okay. All right. Okay. So if if you can hear me, all right, cool. So what I was saying about gentrification is that, to get back to the voter education piece, and looping in the whole idea of the Shelby County case, um, uh, gentrification could also serve as a form of gerrymandering. So just imagine that instead of having to redraw the lines and which district you are a member of and who you get to vote for, instead of having to deal with cracking districts or packing people into districts, we're just going to gentrify the whole district, and that will change the voter base by changing the demographic, for
Yep.
example.
Mm-hmm. Can
But
you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you
All
loud and
right.
clear.
Cool. All right. Perfect.
But yeah, definitely people need to have more discipline and knowledge, and have to watch out for these pitfalls that the powers that be may put in front of
Well, I
us when
mean,
we try to
I
do
will. Let me give you a
generational wealth.
scenario.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, I'm just gonna go back to a quick scenario that I just
Hmm.
mentioned. So in my hometown, I'll just keep using my city, Detroit. So there's neighborhoods that are 15 minutes, 12 minutes from downtown, like quick, and it looks horrible. And these are older homes. I get it. They could be elderly, maybe staying in them. I'm going to send you a home that my sister sent and that we looked into buying. We just didn't have, I'm here, she's there, whatever. For some reason, we didn't get the house.
Hmm.
Uh, I'll go up on the estimate on what this house was. It was, I'll be generous because I think it was lower. It was $35,000, this
Hmm.
house.
Right.
And it had an adjacent lot, I think two on either side.
Okay.
Take a guess on one, what the house is selling for now, and two, the proximity of how close it is to downtown.
I oh
No, I
is
mean,
it
no
is
right
it
or wrong.
is
Just take a
it
guess. Yeah.
did they jack up the price? So it's like six figures, like 250, 500K.
It's $400,000 now because of the work that was put into it.
Mm-hmm.
it's going, it's, I don't want to say no one can afford that, but nobody's purchasing that house in the city of Detroit right now, in that area now, for that price. Is it worth it? Possibly, with all the state of the art stuff that they possibly put in there. Nobody's purchasing that house. I would purchase it to what you mentioned, maybe 200,
Hmm.
maybe 250 on a high end. But for me, I'm different. I would get something commercial and mixed and do something blah blah blah. But in any case, my example is just mostly along the lines of, hey, this house was $35,000. It's on a block
Hmm.
where other people are. You got houses next door, and no one's there. I have a best friend that's next door to a house, and I think it's like 30 or $40,000.
So you're making me think about institutional investors in real estate. So I'm not
Okay,
talking about like regular black folks who say, "Hey, we
right.
got a little bit of money saved. We want to buy a couple rental properties,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of our portfolio to build generational wealth for our family and
Correct.
stuff like that." Because I mean, I'm in that boat and I'm trying to do it. It's a struggle just trying to find something when I'm trying to do like these online tax deed land auctions. They keep pulling the rug out from under me. But
Absolutely.
but when you talk about somebody like BlackRock, Blackstone, these huge
Yeah,
trillion-dollar companies that
that's the play.
they buy up a lot of real estate, a lot of rental properties, a lot of homes, and then
Yes.
instead of that being available to be bought by a black family or any family, it's
Y- that yes,
they're
keep
renting
going.
it out. They're renting it
Yes.
out, and they
Yes.
can jack up the price, and that's what's
Yes.
causing inflation in the housing market because of the scarcity that is being artificially produced
Yeah,
by
California and New
these.
York are the biggest, and I think they're now doing something in, well, no, Texas is safer, but it's regional, as I'm understanding. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, you can't do anything in New York right now. You definitely can't do anything in California. Not in the hubs of excitement. You
Uh-huh.
can't. So there's that. But yeah, you mentioned exactly it. Corporations are purchasing single family homes. The
Yeah.
other caveat that just passed is now in athletics and sports.
What's that?
It was just passed in football. They're allowing corporations to now purchase a small equity of sports teams,
Uh-oh.
10% cap. So BlackRock can own, what's in Virginia? The
There's no sports,
Washington, yeah,
right?
it's not in Virginia,
There's
but you're close to DC. They can
the
own the
Commanders.
Commanders. They can own 10% stake of the Commanders, owned by BlackRock, owned by um, Morgan Stanley, owned by Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, probably
Hmm.
won't say that, but yeah. So yeah, do they own tickets and got skyboxes? Sure, they do. Now they have a say.
Hmm. Right.
And they're very influential, of course. So eventually it'll probably go up to 25% stake, because now owners, like if I own the team, I have to do everything as an owner. So with
Hmm.
a 10% stake, that gives me possibly 10% of equity or resources that I can free up to do something else.
Right. Very
So it's coming.
influential.
Yeah.
Very
So
that's how influence works. I mean, politics and money go hand in hand. Politics and economics go hand in hand.
yeah, I
Cash rules
mean,
everything around you.
yeah, cream. I call it the whale effect.
Oh
The
yeah,
whale
whale
effect.
play. Yeah,
Yeah,
whales
yeah,
playing in the market.
yeah. Well played.
Hmm. Right.
Because they have the capacity to do things at scale, and their margin of error on investments such as a single family home,
Hmm.
it's not going to affect their bottom line much.
No.
And I'm at the crib, so probably let me walk and give me one more minute of grace. I have this screen on my phone. It won't go away. It's the network connection lost. And I'm a
Uh-uh.
product manager, so when I see stuff in apps that just don't go away, I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on. Give me 1 second. I'm going to walk in. I just don't want this phone to be shaking and going all over. So 1 minute.
Gotcha. Okay. Um,
Oh shoot, I can't tap anything else. Oh boy, this is embarrassing. All right, give me a second.
All right. Scooby-Doo.
All right, here we go.
So I think we all but answered my next question, which comes from info from the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard, and from the Urban Institute, talking about the primary reasons behind the higher rent burden among Black males, with over 50% of Black renters spending more than 30% of their income on housing. We already talked about jacking up the rent. So, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. You've
I'm about
take.
to. I might be freezing. I'm gonna switch over to my machine, so
Uh
it
oh.
might be. Yeah, so you might see something. I don't know.
Uh
Do
oh.
something weird. Oh, nope, that wasn't it. That StreamYard. Come on, bro. Oh man, why is it making me fill out a job application?
In order to get in this. Wait. What? Oh, hey. There you are.
Yeah, is it
I can see you.
weird? Yeah, I'll just keep it like this. I was gonna try and join the desktop because I still got this mobile thing and it's not letting me tap off this screen. It's a big network connection loss alert on. I'm trying to touch the screen and it's not working. So yeah, but we're good.
It's all good. And so
So
yeah,
jacking
yeah
up the price like jacking up beats.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah.
that I'm in a situation, and I can be transparent. I'm in a situation to where I have both.
Hmm.
I have a
How
house
so?
and I'm renting at the same time.
Gotcha.
So I'm at the mercy of the rental apartment. I have no say if the rent gets jacked up or not. My daughter is also renting and she actually moved because her apartment complex, which wasn't very great with the upkeep, also decided to, raise the rental prices as well.
Hmm.
Do they have the authority to do so? Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And it's going to be, I don't want to say a squeeze because where are you going to live? You have to live
Right.
somewhere. But I think with that squeeze, which is why I'm glad we're kind of having this conversation, is maybe to crowdsource. You may have to be uncomfortable to live comfortably. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is I may have to move to Virginia or wherever you are and stay in a dollar building that may be uncomfortable for a second in order to get comfort in 2 to 3 years, as long as you stay the course and stay a plan. And I think that's what's the mindset that kind of messes us up with this American dream is that it's not always at my age now. I'm glad to understand the realization to stop looking at freaking TV. Because what they provide, no, I'm serious, because what's provided on television isn't real life. It's similar to what, if you fight somebody, it's not choreographed and you don't hear the sounds that you hear on TV. Similar to when you go and you get a you go get a house. You don't move in and your house is just immaculate and great. Over time, you're putting that stuff in. The move-in process is grueling unless you have movers that's coming in and doing all that stuff for you.
Good
It's
movers.
not pretty. Yeah, good. And there you go. Good movers. Your stuff may be lost on the highway for a week or two. I've heard about stories like that. And
Right.
you're not getting into that comfort zone into your home for time. it's a time thing, and it's a time consistency and mindset thing. So if you kind of go in with that, not saying that everything's going to be difficult, I'm not even saying that, but just understand that there's sprinkle some more reality on this process to really understand. You might sit or be in an apartment for this. Hell, you may be in a hotel for a couple of days or a month and then transition into this, transition to that. We don't sit down, and young men that I know, I didn't sit down and plan out and have a goal and say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm only going to eat um,
Ramen noodle.
ramen noodles and chunk chicken and some salad and fruit,
That's
and my
that's
budget's going to be here. I didn't do that, and not saying that you really, because it's not glamorous.
it's
It's
not
not a
healthy.
three-point shot. No, ramen noodles isn't healthy, but you can sustain yourself on a healthier. And there's now I'm going to go off on a tangent. All right.
Uh-oh.
So the thing I'm saying about, no, because I wanted to get into some other things. But no, you can raise the rent. If I am an owner, which if we crowdsourced and we bought a multi-unit, and maybe we stayed in the first two apartments and there's two other apartments upstairs. All right, well, inflation's happening. Maybe we can raise the rent from 3 to 5% year over year. We let the tenants know if they're cool, cool. That rent's getting raised 3 to 5%. We dictate that. They don't dictate that. Why? We own we kind of own it, but we can dictate that.
So
So if we go ahead,
go
that's
ahead,
it.
go ahead. Oh,
No, that
I
was it.
was I was gonna you sparked a thought. So to get off the script, do you foresee a future where, much like you have, lots that have a bunch of mobile homes and a bunch of RVs, but instead of RVs, it's people living in those tiny houses that you can get like on Amazon, or like that little Tesla tiny house where people are
Again,
buying those?
you have to sprinkle some reality on it, only because that's something that I did. I do have some studies on it a little bit, so
Hmm.
it can work. And some it's once again, it's a time thing. There's a tiny home complex in Detroit. There's a tiny home luxurious community in Atlanta that started. So is it possible? Yes. Again, you have to go into the with what is it?
Hmm.
Because I've seen mobile home parks, and some are okay and decent, but some really don't look all that great and inviting. Um, all it is a roof over my head. But the ones in Atlanta that I've seen is a luxurious spot. I'm saying luxurious because it's high end and
Hmm.
things of that nature. Now, I've seen quote unquote trailer parks that are functional, but everyone that I've seen from driving around in certain neighborhoods, you don't want to. It doesn't look safe.
Right. Right.
And I'm not even saying here in America. I've seen other parts, or not part. I not haven't seen parts of the world, but I've seen um, examples in other countries
Hmm.
where it's kind of adjacent to trailer home parks, but some make it work, like you were
Right.
saying. So yeah, is it a tiny home? Get it off of Amazon? Okay, you have to put some work into that. Is piping and electricity number one? Where are you going to flush the toilet? Where are you going to do all this stuff? Where are you going to get your mail? So that stuff you have to really think about when you sprinkle on this, reality part to it. Where you're going to park, you know,
Right.
those things. And are you going to have to pay taxes on this land? Do you own the land?
Mm.
So there's a lot of, I don't want to say restrictions, but certain communities and municipalities on where you live have different structures according to what these structures can do and accommodate. Also, some are built for the type of land or climate, some aren't.
Right.
So you just can't plop a tiny house in Chicago in the
Hmm.
wintertime. It might blow over. It's the Three Little Pigs effect. So because they're not anchored in to
Right.
the home, and then that's the base and stuff. So there's a few things you need to just consider. Is it doable? Absolutely. There's people that are thriving in these types of things. There's a guy in Atlanta that was featured because this it's so high in Atlanta that he literally built a tiny home or has a tiny home in his backyard that he Airbnbs out.
Hmm.
The reason why he can do that is because he's there, he can provide the security, and I believe he also accommodates for like being a concierge and can take them people that subscribe to his Airbnb. He can be the additional like Uber driver as well. But he said he's gotten rave reviews because he accommodates for safety in
Hmm.
Oakland because Oakland is high.
Ooh, open high.
It's also, I don't want to say bad, but it's also to the point where I'm seeing people convert their garages to extra living spaces.
Wow. House hack your garage. So I mean that's rolling into the next question. We kind of maybe touched on here and there about what ways do eviction rates disproportionately affect Black males, and how does this contribute to housing instability and homelessness within this demographic? And this is stuff that we're getting from the Eviction Lab at Princeton and the National Low Income Housing Coalition.
Well,
So I mean, we
eviction
kind of,
laws are different from state to state too,
yep.
as well. So I know in New York, it's hard to evict somebody in New York,
Hmm.
specifically around certain periods of climate, and that's when an influx of people kind of come in and do things, and you get into those things. So, but I just kind of stem it back, going to just being a good human, and your
Yeah.
the whole mission of being for all. If you're going in with a devious mind state and you get evicted, that's on you. I don't think it really correlates with race or color.
Hmm.
Is there some correlations? Absolutely. Racism still exists here in America wholeheartedly. So
Hmm.
I'm never going to downplay that. So with that, you have to be careful. But what I've learned also is consistently document yourselves. And as you get older and mature as a black male, you kind of understand how to carry yourself accordingly. There's situations where you do need to be emotional and respond with emotion and a certain bravado. There's certain where you just your demeanor needs to be of a mature level, and you're taking notes and
Hmm.
you're documenting with facts. So if you do encounter a situation where there's a discrepancy with rent evictions and things of that nature, you have the law on your side. Do you always win? Again, sometimes you don't. Why? Because of your color sometimes. Um, but documentation, at least you've done your due diligence. The other thing about being us and being a man is to somewhat have a backup plan, crowdsource and things of that nature. And then the caveat to that, you mentioning homelessness. Um, since we and you're addressing these topics,
Hmm.
there are services and things of that nature out there that can accommodate men, but as I'm understanding, they really don't. There's not really a lot of services out there for men. And then okay, so let me give you for instance.
Okay.
For the moment I'm unemployed, so I'm not ruling out the possibility that hey, could I honestly lose my apartment and whatever. I could. Now I'm going to try my hardest not to, of course. But if I do my plan B, okay, well, there's the car, and then the next plan C and D. Hey, what other services can I do or be around? What organizations or what brotherhood? That's a word that we don't hear a lot either. Can help sustain. Now I've hindered myself in mentioning an organization that should play a part or that should be readily available temporarily. Um, your local church.
Yep.
This is where a lot of these topics that we talk about. should be in existence. There were, I don't want to say that they aren't talked about in the Bible, but it's a model of our everyday living. Like there's nothing new under the sun. People were homeless in biblical times, and things
Hmm.
are a little more catastrophic as well. They might have
Hmm.
not had to cut the grass, but they may have had to sweep the stoop with some hyssop or something. I don't know. But in any case,
Hmm.
your local church should also be there as a resource and not as just feeding of words and hope and faith. You need to feed with food, which is what, don't want to go off on religion, but um, the model of Christ actually fed people and actually clothed and gave them water if they were thirsty first before
Right.
giving them
The
scripture,
word.
which I can't eat. Can't eat the
Mhm.
Bible.
Right. I mean, that's there's a couple of points in there that need to be teased out, like from that enlightened self interest. Like, I guess the same way that if banks are giving you a mortgage and you're missing payments, and and they're in a situation where they may have to um, take the home away. That's something they typically don't want to do because they're not in the business
Of real
of
estate.
finding right
Yeah.
of real estate or finding tenants and everything, or
Yeah.
finding a new person that they could extend the mortgage to, or extend this property to. Same sort of a thing, really, with depending upon the asset, but you could apply that to a number of different assets like that. But for the church, yeah, an enlightened self-interest, it makes more sense to bring people in for the juice and cookies, for a t-shirt or a coat, overcoat in the wintertime, some boots, um, and then they stay to hear the word. So I mean,
Correct.
that kind of works. Even if you're not thinking from a more altruistic perspective, from that enlightened self interest, you're trying to bring in people, and you're trying to proselytize, or you're trying to make them members of the church home, that sort of thing. Like, Eric Thomas, ET, always talks about that. Like, he was sitting in the back, and he was in a bad way. And then somebody came along, pastor came along and said, I see an anointing on you. And then next thing you know, fast forward some years, and he's the hip hop preacher that's on world famous on YouTube. So there are these ideas that you can put something into somebody first, not necessarily expecting to get anything out immediately, but ultimately you will get them going in the direction that you see them needing and wanting to go, and that you as is a member of the church wants them to go as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a number of groups that should be perhaps doing more along those lines, in terms of not just doing economic empowerment, but backstopping folks to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I can break down. You just I just wrote down a whole bunch of stuff from what you just mentioned.
Mhm.
So I think the institution of the church is pivotal. Let's put religion aside because it should really not be about religion. It should be about relation, number one. You
Mhm.
mentioned a word that really, well, a couple words that stood out. When you mentioned juice and cookies, shirts and coats, boots, you said it kind of, I know it sounds weird. It does kind of work because that's temporary. What I think the function, again, my views personally, I recently joined. a I'm gonna say I joined a church, but I really think I joined a like-minded spot, and we actually got Bible study in a minute. Um, I've joined a church with that I that kind of subscribes to a thinking of betterment.
Mhm.
The opportunity is definitely there. Now, you mentioned, you can draw a horse to water, but if they don't drink, there's nothing you can do. But you mentioned the kinda, doing this stuff that's temporary. That's kind of my dad. I have a church. Well, not I. My dad's church in Detroit. We've seen people come in that's less fortunate. Hey, I need help getting. All right, man. Here's 10, 20, $50. You know, God bless. Hope things get better. Whatever. You're not gonna. It's not a revolving door every week to see this person come in. Like, man, man, man. The church and the structure and institution, how they're set up financially, can really do more in a dynamic way. Since we're on this topic of men, and a lot of men, black men,
Mhm.
may not have grown up with fathers, may not have grown up with leadership or guidance
Mhm.
overall, maybe even with fathers in there, because these fathers may not have had their fathers. So what I'm getting at is it's an allowable space and an institution to encompass and grow a program or programming to help uplift the mindsets and mind states and execution and action of young men to do better as a citizen of where you live outside of just joining the church. I think joining the church may be the aftermath of that. Um, but those things I strongly have a passion about and a viewpoint about. I just I would say it. I don't think churches are doing enough with the resources that they have.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is that they have buildings, and a church is actually a building. I am actually a church. I should be walking and exemplifying certain aspects of my relationship in order to help you and do that and do this. So, where do we congregate collectively? In a building. Church can be anywhere where two or three are gathered. That's where it be. So, let me go back to this point. Tax implications and stuff that the church has access to can help build better nations or better mindsets of men. And if black men, essentially, which is what we're talking about, I think it could definitely work.
Mhm.
I just went to a conference at my church, and they were speaking mostly about business
That's good.
with faith. With faith. No, it's
That's
better than
good.
good. We
That's
had
real
Anthony
good.
O'Neill. Absolutely,
Oh,
had Anthony O'Neill at my church.
cool.
Anthony O'Neill, Tim Ross, a whole bunch of other people that I was like, are you kidding me? Yes, they were at my church teaching. Yes, I see them on YouTube. I see them on all the social media platforms. But no, Anthony O'Neill was right there. I can touch him, shake his hand. What's up? And he's talking about literacy, ownership, leadership, things of that in business, as from a pastor's point of view, leadership in the pastor's role from church, but also in business.
Right.
That should be more.
Right.
That should be every day. That should be the curriculum of church. I believe it's taught in Jewish churches, in a sense.
Well,
I believe.
I mean, so to that point, I've searched on YouTube, but I've seen this podcast called Culture Money,
Hmm.
and I was looking like, okay, what else is out there? Well, I did find something like halal finance or Islamic finance, but I was looking like, where is you know, kingdom money, you know,
Nope.
or where's, there is that, what do you call it? Prosperity gospel. There's that, but I don't know whether that's
It has
quite
no
the same
return.
thing or
Yeah,
not.
I listen. Yeah, the scripture about the talents, that's about coming back and having a return. And sometimes that doesn't also always mean money, because there's time,
Right.
talent, and treasure, which is something that money isn't. Time, talent, and treasure is wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Money is different than wealth. I have a whole bunch of money and not be wealthy.
Right. Right. Right.
So, because you, as a person, you want to teach men to be mostly of a holistic being. But to that point, I'm just saying that it would be great to see the church lead the charge in helping Black men, which is seen as leaders in the home, to have those types of skills, maybe alongside a helpmate, to sustain, to get a home into it. Now your living arrangements or organization could be different. You don't have to own a home to be this person, but I know that's the subject
Mm-hmm.
and topic that we're talking through.
Right.
So, but in order to get to that level, it's not widely known, which is, again, I forgot. The church, right before I joined, had a movement of helping people. It was helping. They wanted to help people to get the mission was 100 homes. So it was helping people to get in the mindset of owning home ownership. And then shortly after that, it was about getting passports for
Mm-hmm.
people to travel and to understand that this world is bigger than 79th Street in Stony Island, or 35th Street in Harlem, or this or that.
Stony.
It's bigger, right?
79th
Yeah,
is Stony.
that's kind of where it's near. But anyway, it's yeah. So we talked about
So
that
what,
question about escalation.
one
Go ahead.
thing that comes to mind, I don't know. I probably need to do more research to get some hard facts on this. But one urban myth that I've heard is that the Catholic Church owns a whole lot of real estate all over the world.
I don't think there's a lot of myths to a lot of, I don't want to say Catholic churches. I just don't, you never know who owns what.
Right.
Because in Detroit, I'm hearing that it was largely owned by an Asian population. However, rules were set in place where you just can't come and own anything. You have to actually cultivate what you own. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just buy it and literally hold it in your hand,
It's just
because things are just crumbling, right? So that you can't do that. So you could be right.
but
But in that case, go ahead.
the point I was getting at though is that urban myth or no, what would it look like for black churches to be similarly self-organizing, and you take out a HELOC on the church and you use
I
that to
wouldn't.
buy
It
properties.
would be a different, whatever method it would be great, because you can crowdsource. And it was
Crowdsource
something
or
weird that,
HELOC one. Go ahead.
no, I'm just saying,
Use something.
whatever avenue. Yeah, when you mentioned that, it was crazy, because I, I was just saying that however the church is allowed to purchase and get ownership of land via the church, I think first rights of, would probably go to your members. And if a member is struggling, or a member of the family is struggling, that's an avenue to help,
Mm-hmm.
because you have that resource. Okay, well, we understand, here are the terms. And I think that's where things get lost with a lot of Black men, is no terms.
Mm.
There's
How do
there's
you mean that? I
no
don't understand.
understanding. All right, so I'll break it down. So, all right, we have terms with this podcast. Is every this, that, you send this and that. and I understand it. Now, do I always join on time or do I forget? Yes, but they're terms.
Right, right,
So I
right.
can't come back like, man, you ain't tell me that this, that, you ain't do this or that. You didn't do this, and I didn't understand that. No, there's clear terms. They're loose terms, but there's clear communication on expectations. Instead of, man, I just got evicted because she don't like me or he don't like me. They just throwing me out because of this. Well, no, there were certain terms that you didn't subscribe to.
Hmm.
This is, and you did this on multiple times according to the lease and the terms, but you didn't read. You broke every last one, not once, not twice, but 5 times. So
Hmm.
I gave you grace, I gave you mercy. Now it's time to go.
Hmm.
And if the church also would have that, they would have to exercise those same terms. But I think with that, the church would provide an education on, I don't know, man, ownership into where it's co-op and it's things like that. And I laugh because I was just listening to Ian and Rashad
Right.
about the
EYL.
preacher in Texas, Houston,
Right, right.
Texas, that asked
Um,
for 4.4 million from his congregation, and supposedly the congregation has an ownership stake in the church building.
mm.
I don't know how that's broken down, but see, those terms aren't clear, and I think you're dipping into some. I don't know how that is viable.
I saw some of that
I'm
on
a
Blackout too.
shareholder. Yeah,
They,
I'm a
and
shareholder of my church.
but Ian was a little bit reluctant to opine
Yeah,
too
because he
strongly because
knows
I
because
was right,
because he knew of
right,
him.
right, right. So,
But I
but
still don't think that's great.
so that idea of terms that is kind of one of the gotchas that I think gets a lot of us, whether
Surprise,
we're trying
surprise.
to, yes, yes, whether we're trying to buy a home, whether we're trying to sell that home so we can buy a better home somewhere, or whether we are trying to get a loan for business or personal use, or whatever the situation that you're entering into a contract with somebody and the terms may not be that clear. They're a little murky, or on top of that, the terms that are laid out in front of you are more draconian than the terms that are laid out in front of other people. And
Well,
so
that's where
that
you get a
leads to that.
lawyer, which is why I
Mhm.
did, because that was my first purchase. I absolutely was not going to buy a house because I already knew I was not going to read 500 pages.
Mhm.
And I'm just glad we did because there was something similar to that. The owners, the sellers came in at a short,
Right.
and they were expecting us to pay the short, and they had an attitude with this.
Mm.
Like, but I was actually very surprised at myself because normally I'm really okay. Well, I didn't give in at all. I had no remorse. One, because I had my lawyer there
Mhm.
and I let them handle it. We didn't budge. They were like, yeah, well, that's $5,000 short. We were like, okay, y'all work that out, not us. It's not our problem. We have all of our ducks in a row. We're all checked over here.
Mhm.
So yeah, which goes into doing your due diligence. Yeah, bring a lawyer. Look, man, insurance, lawyers at this age, it, it, something not could go will go wrong.
Mhm.
It will. You just don't know when, but you'll be able to accommodate and deal with things better when you're better equipped. But that comes with the maturity or being surrounded and knowing what you need to do. And I just went and I read, and that's some of the education I got. I mean, and at the time I was married, and that's something that we agreed. It's like, now we ain't getting this career without a lawyer.
Mhm.
We were lock and step with those, measures on before getting a house.
So one of these terms that could trip somebody up is when you have a criminal record. So
Felony.
that falls into the next question. So how does the presence of a criminal record exacerbate
Crowdsourcing.
housing?
Again, family and crowdsourcing, bro. I,
Okay.
I, I hate to keep going back, and it's not a nonchalant thing. That's a
Yeah.
hard subject to sell. But if I have, and I know of someone that has a brother who is incarcerated, and when they get out, they'll have a record. Well, how can he get a home?
Right.
Okay, well, this person has access and and is a real estate investor and things of that nature. So yeah, is he lucked up there on the family side? But let's go back to the church model. Okay, well, my church has every week, like, you can ask legal questions. So one, you
Hmm.
can start there and you can get, some advice. You have to go and dig for this information. It's not just going to knock on your door and be like, information. It's not going to be like that. As a man, I mean, I had to learn that. It's kind of like, man, I wish, and they they should just, I stopped saying those words. They should just do. No, I should just do.
They should
So
they so they
go
do
ahead.
when they want you to do something. People are constantly hitting you up, giving you phone because they want you to sell the house so they can take
Yeah,
it and gentrify. But if it's something that's actually good for you that you want
yeah,
to do, but you just
you
don't
have
know
to
where to go to get, you got to go get it yourself. Yeah.
You gotta go and get it. You gotta find it, and I that's what I'm saying. I'm using resources everywhere. I'm just saying my church, but I'm using resources where I know, and you hear it a lot, but you have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. You have to go and find that group.
Mm.
I'm telling you, I have something right here that I heard from a sermon that says unlikely partnerships. No, that was actually at the conference. You may have to be associated with people that you never thought you'd be associated with because they might have a perspective for you that could help you out.
Oh, so
Yeah,
you're gonna get smart now. So see, you think you better than us. You bougie now because you got all this information in your mind.
call it as you may, bro. I got a house, you don't, and it's not a flex, but it's a fact. I'm serious, and you can come over and I can show you how I did it because I want you to have the same and do the same because I don't want you to come and be jealous of me and mess up what I have. When
Mm.
I can give you the game, I can give you the shovel, you still gotta dig.
So okay, if that's the conflict, then because that's starting to deviate into a discussion around class. So if we've got these class conflicts within
No, man.
our
No, no.
population, how? But hold on now, how? Because you've gotten this information and you're able to move up economically and whatnot, and then people will start looking askance at you, and then it's difficult to do the house hacking that you're talking about because how can you get these different groups to live together if there are these different class conflicts?
No, you're only a different class by mindset. I got my house and I did things a certain way. Again, I want you to be at the same level or better than me. I will help you buy your own shovel. You still
Mm.
have to dig. And the better way that I can help you out too is like, hey, don't dig over there. Dig around in this area because this will get you to where you need to go. So people have learned, way ahead of us, and they've made those. I fail over here. You don't want to do this. But what happens is, like you're saying, the caveat, I mean, the alternate, what you're saying about the class is when people do compare themselves and want to be better and appear as, hey, I have an asset that can burn up and be gone tomorrow that makes me better than you. I call it the Chicago VIP effect, where I just put a rope So if I put a rope right here between you and I, even though we're personally
Velvet
talking,
rope.
I'm better than you because I'm in a velvet rope section. Nothing. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, the point you're making is correct because we do have people that look down when you really should be, hey man, let me help you build your shovel also, and I'm gonna put you in these circles. But again, it goes back to mindset and mind state. I'm not going to just give you everything. And like a word that I heard today is like, man, work until you not exhausted and about to pass out. But God's like, yeah, I'm gonna give you. I'm the super on your natural. So don't just let me don't I mean I will definitely give you gifts, but bro, don't just sit there and wish and hope and
Mhm.
pray. Faith without what? Works
Faith
is
without
dead.
works
So
is dead.
but but work keep working though. Yes, take breaks. Do your mindfulness and stuff like that. Don't sit there the whole freaking day though.
You need both fasting and prayer.
Absolutely. And fasting is not necessarily only about food.
Hmm. But I mean, you're saying like faith without works is dead. You're saying you guys you just do the
I'm
mindfulness
saying
too.
where you just I'm
The
saying
prayer.
with all just I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna manifest and sit here. You can do that all you want, but it's
So
not gonna come.
that's correct because you have to do the work as well. But the point I was kind of getting at about the fasting and prayer is a corollary to faith without works is dead. Is that yes, you fast and that's the work, but the prayer, that's the mindfulness, the manifestation, whatever stuff that you do to improve your mindset. So it doesn't just feel like you're just going through the motions, going through a grind, where and your expectations are middling to low, as opposed to changing from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. In addition to doing the work towards that abundance, so that you really do need both pieces.
Yes, and
Yes, and go ahead, go ahead.
well, no, I'm saying yes, and my additional to the prayer is simply it's me talking and aligning myself to understand. Hey, man, this is on my mind. Like some people do kind of eloquence and stuff like that. Uh, I don't have that ritual. I literally just be like, hey, listen, this is what's going on. I need so that I'm in alignment with that. Now, the work also is a part of it, which is your fasting, but I don't think that's the only part of it. I think that's a part of the work. I don't think that's the only work because it centers you and it gives you clarity in what you need to do. So, but hey, one one way or the other, if you ain't working, you
Right,
technically gonna be fasting because you ain't got no food. So you go, it's go one way is gonna be divine. So you want it to be in the right way. But no, going back to that, it's really circling back to mind state and getting that information because it does if I want this kind of grace, I gotta connect with a source. Similar to here on earth, I gotta connect with the source to understand the information. I gotta go and dig. Am I gonna get it right the first time? Probably not. But now
mm-hmm.
I gotta keep grinding. I mean, I've been out of work. This will be going on 3 months now. So I'm at the 90-day mark. So
Mm-hmm.
it's scary. I'm not gonna lie. It's scary.
but
Unemployment is about to run out.
but hold on now. In addition to being a board member, Progress for All, you also have Media Covenant LLC.
Correct.
So the mindset that is rolling around in my mind is that you are not out of work, unemployed. You've got a
Have a
dearth of
system in place. Yeah,
income. Well, that's what I'm saying. You need income, whether it's
correct.
from that day job that everybody feels that they need in order to survive, and only that and nothing else, or this LLC that you created that may have started out as a side hustle, but as you grow it and develop it and put more into it, that becomes your day job. But then on top of that, you have other income streams because you are doing other things in order to generate income. It just may not be as much as you would prefer because of all the expenses and because of the comfort level. But there are things percolate. You're not just sitting there praying.
I'm not sitting
Mindfulness.
idle.
You're working. You're
Absolutely.
fasting.
Which is why the fervor in my voice of yeah, you got to go and get it, because a 9 to 5 and a salary job did put forth a level of complacency in my survival. And now I'm literally surviving. And now I understand between survive and thrive. And what sets people apart, yeah, they have comfort, but they have a different comfort because now you've set your lifestyle at a certain accommodation where it's a little more grave. You're doing $1 million plays, not hundred and thousand. So because you're home and you're this and you're that, and I'm understanding finances and budgeting a whole lot more now. So I get the millionaire mindset that yeah, you're playing probably with monetary values at scale, but now your life is at scale. So I still have to get up and eat. Now, I know some people have put some things in place, but they have certain comfort levels that they may have to uh, drag down if certain things come to play. So, a long story short is this definitely has taught me about survival because I am not the only mouth that I need to feed.
Right.
So that's the other point that's in place, and we can go to town. But and now it circumvents back to they don't like me and the man keeping me down and this or that, and I can't get an interview and this or that. I can't look at that. I gotta
Mm-hmm.
go.
Right.
I really can't. So now I honestly have to surround myself with and put myself in environments in better situations to where I got to eat. Now, is
Right.
it a job? I don't know, but that's where my communication is. Lord, what is this and what did I do? What do I need to do? What can I do better? And what, put me in give me direction so that I can use my time, talent, and treasure according to your will and your purpose so I can eat and
Right.
feed your children, literally.
Right. 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 Like all that stuff may be
Hmm.
true, but I literally do not have the time to ruminate over it. I have to do something because these kids are looking at me side eye. Where's the McDonald's? Where's where is the creature
No,
comforts that we
serious.
used to have?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. To where, I've taken, I've made, in my, I'm, s- I am about to sacrifice a few things, not, not in a dreadful way, but
Right.
you really have to look at things now, in a certain way to accommodate for people that you want to, and it's not, I want y'all to still live comfortable and bling. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, hey, you're afforded roof over your head, clothes on your back, and shoes on your feet, food in your stomach, and
Mm-hmm.
and a house to, so those bare minimums is what's going on right now.
Right. Right. Right, man.
And honing skills to when you get back into the job market to make sure that you can accommodate. You don't want to get back in only to I don't want to say get let back in. I don't know. I think there's something that's definitely in the works for how things are going with me. I'm praying and I'm hearing that, so I'm just gonna keep on that faith.
Right. Right. I mean, people talking about AI is going to take your job. I don't think it's
No,
quite there yet for a lot of
no, I
things.
don't. Absolutely, I don't
And
think it's
all
there yet. I don't think government wise not there yet. But number two and three, not to cut you off, I honestly think certain corporations are using it as an excuse.
Right.
There, I said it.
Right. It's like
To let people
they're,
go.
no, but they're setting these terms. We're talking about that word terms again, and they're using it as is kind of a whipping tool, and that really ultimately whether or not AI is deployed into the enterprise in a way that causes job destruction or not is dependent upon those executives in charge who have the final say on whether or not we're going to do it that way, as opposed to doing it where here we're going to give people these tools to help them to be more effective at their jobs, as opposed to here we're going to use this robot to take your whole job.
Right. And what executive do you know currently that is all up in AI that does not own technology corporations? Let me caveat that because they're like a Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or forgot they own a Square, but those types of guys are a little
Is
more
it still
savvy and
Dorsey?
aware. Dorsey, Jack Dorsey. I'm just saying they would be adjacent to the technology to know a little bit more rather than someone of corporations that I used to work for
Right.
that might just listen to a buzzword or hear
Right.
a resource and just go along with it to quote unquote cut costs or to cut something to look good. Similar to
Mm-hmm.
Boeing.
Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, there are all these tools out there that people are using so that they can take their companies of one, their sole proprietorships to the next level. So that's the part that kind of encourages me is that any one of us can use this to generate buzz, to generate leads, to generate products and services that are more effective and maybe make us better, faster, cheaper, more nimble than some of our competitors. And then we can use that and you can put that into
To
other things. You're
scale.
doing an entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Entrepreneurship. Yeah. You scale up your sole proprietorship. You got the entrepreneurship pillar in place. Then you can go and housing affordability. You in a better place to buy a property either as your primary residence or as a rental. And then you've got that real estate pillar in place. And then you've got funds from these two income streams. You can then push that into investments. So you're making money while you sleep. And that's the third pillar, the investing
Yep.
for that generational wealth everybody talks about.
Which I've had to stop.
You had to stop. What do you mean? Stop investing?
Hmm.
Okay. All right. Well,
So, in how many minutes? We probably got 2 minutes. So, I know that I'm gonna say this. I'm not
no, I
stopping.
mean,
Like,
well,
I'm never gonna invest again.
we're already over, but whatever. Forget
Oh,
it. I mean, you would go as long as you want.
right. No, I'll say 5 minutes because I actually gotta go
All
do
right.
some door dashing. Um, what I'm getting at is, like invest, or just try and do both and do uh, whatever you can do or whatever financially, or put the math where the math is. If you're in a situation where you're in some sort of debt that has an interest rate over it that
Yeah.
is higher than the average of what you're investing, you're never going to catch up.
Right.
So you have to understand the speed and the reality of math so
Right.
that you can invest. Now, I do have investments in place, but I'd rather get out of a certain, I don't want to say dilemma, but die down some of the debt that I may owe in order to be at a better position to invest.
Right.
Because you can never time the market. I'm not sure if another Doge coin will happen, XRP. I'm not sure.
Right.
Not sure of
Right.
anything of that. And those are, I don't want to say anomalies, but hey man, if you hit it, you hit it.
Mm-hmm.
Never know.
Right.
Still, when people hit the lottery, it's still a, what is it, 70% go broke still after 3 to 5 years. So there's still statistics like that because it's still a mindset thing. So I'm just getting to that. And you mentioned about disparities in black men. It's just understanding this money as a tool, but you have to create your path and use math to actually understand what's happening right now. The best and the biggest thing that I can suggest for any, black man right now is a clear budget, an honest budget.
Mhm.
It's very humbling
Yeah.
because even when I was comfortable, I probably let go, probably be decent right
Mhm.
about now if certain things were, I don't say under control, but monitored better.
What do you think about tools like Mint?
I think it's great. It's still you still gotta you still gotta do your due diligence. I've started and subscribed to Every Dollar. I like the zero-based budgeting better. I have other tools like Monarch and Simplify and all like that. Those are great, but every dollar you have to for when you're at a certain level, you have to count every dollar to understand where you are. Then you graduate and go off. Again, it's a time thing, the time and mind thing. And you have to allow yourself grace to get it because for years we've black men have been living a certain way. It's not
Mhm.
going to just come overnight like I got a budget and then I'm on a strict diet. Cold turkey sometimes don't. It's gotta give yourself they said about 3 months for it to really kick in and then it becomes a habit and this is what you do. Yep.
Well,
So
that that's that's all I got. I think we blew through the remaining questions and just dialoguing back and forth. And I know you got to run, so I appreciate you for showing up yet again. And
yep.
we've put another uh, talk, TED Talk, town hall out into the Doc Talk, Mark and Doc Talk, out into the universe. And thanks to all who support us and who are patrons of this channel. And have a good evening. End the
Yep.
stream right there.
Oh yeah. All right.